All right, Steve, we've got the beginning of the show and it's time to get us going. I know that you've got your usual opening monologue and all of that. So I think that we'll start with that and then we'll see what other people join us. I think that Shaquille is with us as well. So how's everything going in your world?
Oh, wonderful. Well, welcome to World Edition. Uh, I'm Steve Rao. Thank you for the new introduction. I wasn't ready for it. I'm used to the old music. And wanted to welcome you all to Pod TV's World Edition. And on Pod TV, we bring you news from the world, around the world. We talk about innovation and continue our discussion of the pandemic, this never ending hydra, the new variants, and what this means to the world moving forward economically, the strength that we have as a nation and world to deal with this variant and future variants, and what living in a post COVID world and economy may look like for a long time or longer than we thought. Today, I turn my attention to Roe v. Wade. For many years, we've known that Republicans on the court have indicated an interest in overturning Roe v. Wade, but we never thought that we'd in our lifetime see them have the majority of Republicans on the court to do so. And yesterday was the first test as the United States Supreme Court heard oral arguments to uphold a Mississippi law which bans abortions after only 15 weeks of pregnancy, earlier than the standard set for viability in Roe v. Wade. In my opinion, as a moderator of this show, I believe it is a mistake for our Supreme Court of the United States to become a partisan political institution where policies change when the members of the court change, rather than what the court has always done in the history of our nation, be a non-partisan interpreter of legal principles. From the early days of Marbury versus Madison judicial review to the more modern era of upholding voting rights, ending segregation, the courts have been the interpreter of legal precedent. They have ad- adopted principles that they all could agree on to set the long term policy of the United States of America. Policies that became the law of the land and set the standard. We've also seen this on the court with more moderate stances by even Justice Roberts over his last 16 years on the court, and even Amy Coney Barrett and Justice Kavanaugh, upholding gay marriage, upholding Obamacare, were all surprises for many of us who thought a conservative court would just go and change the law and change the policies because of their political appointment. I think Justice Stephen Breyer put it well that he believes that we would kill an American institution if we allowed it to become so very political and question the legitimacy of the court moving forward if Roe v. Wade is overturned. Now, each justice has their own opinion. I can't get into the details of every one, but Justice Brett Kavanaugh said that this was a neutral decision of overturning Roe v. Wade. Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch questioned the notion of viability that was approved in Roe v. Wade, set by Roe v. Wade. Justice Alito said that the Constitution of our country doesn't protect the right to abortion. And Justice Roberts preferred a 15-week ban, but at the same time, a narrower interpretation that would still allow many of the parts of Roe v. Wade to exist. But I think as I close out this monologue, the most compelling argument against this was by Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Sonia is my favorite name. That's my daughter's name. But she said she did not know whether the court could survive the stench that would exist after taking such a political act. Only time will tell what will happen with the justices and their ruling on Roe v. Wade. We know that they meet in private to talk about the case, and maybe once again, the court will surprise us with a more moderate stance. But one thing is perfectly clear as we listen to this show. This is the most serious effort or instance in our nation's history, or one of the most profound landmark decisions of our court that protects women's right to choose, could be in jeopardy, not now, but forever, or for a very, very long time. We'll be keeping tune on that and talking about it today on the role of our courts, particularly the Supreme Nine. With us today, we have Mark Lee, my co host, host of Online Dinner Party and number shows. And
Yep.
we'll probably be joined by other esteemed panelists. I'm one who was going to name them because I never know if they're going to join. Shaquille Latimer from Down
Yes.
Under. Oh, there he is. Yes,
Yeah.
get ready for the last jab. Cup of
Well,
Joe to you.
I'm going to come out swinging tonight.
are
I'll
you
Oh,
tell
going
you.
to
come
come out
out
swinging?
swinging. Come
He,
out swinging, baby,
he's
because
coming
I'm
out
ready.
swinging. We love
I'm
swinging
ready.
matches and
And
all of that.
Sasha Starr from Canada from Chess
Yes,
Stars.
Sasha is with us.
He's
And
also the host of Economics Monday. Gentlemen, get ready to put on the boxing gloves because we're going to go toe to toe. And so
It's all right. I'm good
let's
with
go.
being. I'm good with being. 3 against 1. That's okay.
No,
So
it's healthy debate. It's not three against
absolutely,
one. Healthy
absolutely.
debate.
So
Healthy debate.
so before I get into abortion itself, right? And as I said, and I'm going to say again, I will not tell anybody where I stand on the issue. Okay, I'm not going to say that. And it doesn't matter, but it's just I know that there's a lot of people that are fans of mine that send me emails and say, oh, you've changed my opinion on certain issues. I don't want to change anyone's opinion on the issue. Okay, so I'm not going to say where I stand. But before we get into abortion, did I seriously hear a Democrat say that he doesn't want to see the Supreme Court be a partisan institution? This coming from the very same Democrat who on election night was absolutely thrilled at the idea of Biden stacking the Supreme Court.
I was
Right?
not. I don't believe in stacking. Hey, you don't put words in my mouth.
Well,
What I'm saying.
where's Nick? Where's Nick tonight? He loves the idea of stacking the Supreme Court.
Okay, before we get
well, first off, Nick is
let's go
doing
to
a
Sasha.
pen.
Let's go to Sasha Starr real quick because unfortunately, what happens is sometimes we get on a rant and we want to. So Sasha, insight.
Yeah, I'm going to
into what
use Sash
happens-
before I come out
No,
swinging on
because
these guys.
I don't want him to be waiting for like 10 minutes or not 10 minutes. But Sasha, please.
Its situation is very simple. If the ruling party, is really hungry for power and wants to cement it, what you do, you pack the court. And then you cement it not only for today, you cement it for next 25 years because the judges, they take good care of themselves. They have a long life expectancy. So by packing the court, you're almost guaranteed uh, the preferential treatment at almost any issue for the next 25 years. How? Democrats could not do that for so long time. Next year, actually less than a year from now, they will be out of power, and at the end of story, baby. So you should have done it by now, because even Trump's case regarding January 6th and releasing of all documents, it will end up in Supreme Court, right? And Supreme Court will say, oh, yeah, he is a good guy. Okay, yeah, maybe he did.
Sasha,
Come on.
he challenged the election. How come the Republican majority Supreme Court didn't say, oh, absolutely, the election was stolen? But how come they didn't agree with him?
They should have. They should have.
Oh, come on.
Of course. The election was stolen from Trump, and the Supreme Court has not defended him.
You'll get us banned.
Guys, but the point I'm trying to make real quickly, the point I'm trying to make is that, just give me 1 second here, guys.
While you gather your thoughts, so
You
don't believe it should be a partisan institution.
So
let me just finish my question. You don't believe that it should be a partisan institution, and your favorite Supreme Court justice is the most left wing justice in the court
because of the name.
Well done, Steve.
Sonia. That's the smartest one in the Rao family. Sonia, which in Indian means wisdom. I didn't say she was my favorite justice.
Well, I don't think it means that Spanish.
But hey, let me go into I'm going to do a little Barack Obama for a minute. Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point.
You'll need to start crying.
Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. Don't you love the way Barack does that? But anyway, the point I'm trying to make. Mark Lee's smiling. I got like 11 hours of sleep last night. I'm just on fire. But the bottom line is this, guys. The court's role is to be a nonpartisan interpreter of the law. Yes, Shaquille, you are right. Democrats shouldn't be stacking the court for their reasons, and Republicans shouldn't be stacking the court for their reasons. But what's happened is that's what's happening. And
That's
so
not what's happening. How is that what's happening?
I mean,
how is that what's happening?
they're overturning decades of legal precedent.
No,
Returning a political favor.
Stick to one thing first. How are the Republicans currently stacking the court?
They're not stacking the court.
RGB died, right? It was the correct thing to do for the current government at the time to appoint somebody. What were they supposed to do? Were they supposed to say, you know what? We're going to appoint the most left-wing justice we can find who doesn't agree with our values. No. Would the Democrats do that? I mean, this is absurd.
No, the process was correct. But now let me ask Sasha Starr, and that's one thing we want to do on World Edition. We always want our audience to know how the courts are structured. So Canada has a Supreme Court. Do they have a high court?
They got a high court.
Is the High Court appointed by the Prime Minister, or is it elected, or how is that? Does it work?
To tell the truth, I'm not so sure. It's
I'm not research. That's a good
headlines. Very seldom that you even hear about existence of that High Court in Canada.
How many judges are on there? Do you know?
I have no slightest idea. Never knew and never was interested.
That's my homework assignment. I'm gonna research the Canadian High Court. But that's interesting, right? And so, how does it work in other countries? But we're gonna get into some other issues. But Mark Lee, what are your thoughts about this, my friend?
Well, one thing I just did look up on the Canadian Supreme Court and everything, just out of my own curiosity, and apparently it is of course, the highest court there and everything, and it has 9 justices, and apparently they have something which is one of the points that I was going to bring up earlier when Shaquille and y'all were talking about the way the U.S. Supreme Court is organized and everything. One of the things that they have is that they actually have a mandatory retirement age. So I was wondering, is that something that we might want to consider in the U.S. Supreme Court? That has been a conversation about there being maybe some sort of limit, like a term limit.
I do think that's a great thing to do. I think that the courts, when the court was founded, people lived a very short life. Maybe 50, 45 years old. But now people can live to 80 or 90. I don't think you should be a justice in the court when you're that old. And then you hold on.
Why is this only an issue? Why is this only become an issue since RGB died? Like before that, like how old was RGB? What was she, 85 or something?
But I think it's an issue been before that, Shaquille.
But why wasn't it brought up before that? Why didn't Democrats bring it up before that? If it's not a partisan issue, why didn't Democrats bring it up before that and say, look, the Democrat appointees are too old?
I think either party doesn't want to bring it up because,
because the parties
because it's become political. The court.
That's right.
And so either party, they don't want their justices to age out because they don't want that seat to be emptied.
Right. So let me just bring up a couple of I think salient points. So in the first place, the judges that are appointed are not politicians. They are not in and of themselves political. Their job is not to take a stance on a political issue. Their job is to, first and foremost, is to interpret legislation that is proposed by either state or federal legislatures, and to determine whether or not that is in line with the Constitution. That's the primary role. They also act as a check and balance against the power of the legislature and the executive branch. So it's not a political position. What is happening is that obviously, I would probably sit, I would say, centre-right, although the questionnaire that Mark sent me said that I was 97% Republican and I'm not even American. So that was a very interesting, survey. But the idea is that the people who are appointed are supposed to interpret the Constitution in a non-political way. However, parties are going to look at somebody and assess whether they think that person is likely to rule based on conservative sort of values and the law, the rule of law, or whether they're going to be perhaps more activist and look at more modern issues. Democrats tend to want people that are a little bit more on the activist side, that are going to interpret the laws in line with what's happening today. Republicans tend to want to be, a little bit stick in the mud conservatives. That's not a political position. That's just that's who they're choosing. So I think it's a bit of a stretch to suggest that Republicans are going to stack the court or are appointing people in order to enable the court to only rule in their favor. And most notably, if we're going to talk about Roe versus Wade, it was a Republican appointee that swung that vote, a female Republican appointee that swung the vote and enabled the Roe v. Wade legislation. Now, also, again, without saying where I stand on the issue, things have changed. We have much better medical technology today than what we had 50 years ago. Things have changed dramatically. Should we have euthanasia? That's a debate that's happening in Australia, and now you're beginning to see some allowances for people to choose euthanasia. I'm sure that will be a big issue in the United States, in the coming years. So these are issues that we need to talk about, because we have the ability to keep people alive past the point where their brain has any function, but their body is still alive. Is that what we should be doing? Or should we be, pulling out a feeding tube and letting that person starve to death? Or should we actually say, look, the kindest and most compassionate and dignified thing to do is to give them, a very big dose of morphine or whatever, and let them drift peacefully into the night? Those are conversations that need to be had. In relation to abortion, the question about viability of a fetus, whether you agree or don't agree with it, whether you agree that women should be able to have abortions right up until the day of birth, or even partial birth abortions, which Democrats have advocated for, or whether you think that at the moment that fetus is able to survive outside the womb, abortion should be illegal, and if the woman doesn't want to carry it, they should have a premature birth and have the baby live in an incubator or something like that until it's able to survive on its own. Those are very interesting questions, and I don't think we can distill it down to right to choose, right to life.
Yeah, I think there are people rape and incest and things like that, but
that's without talking about rape and incest. That's just talking about that issue there.
Before we leave this issue, I want to get into some other issues. I think we're going to be monitoring this situation. I wanted to open up the monologue because I thought it was.
Well, before we move on, can I just ask Steve, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think the Supreme Court? I mean, you've got no crystal ball. What's your guess? Do you think the Supreme Court will uphold the Mississippi rules and either partially or totally overturn Roe v. Wade?
I think it'll not be that. I think that you're going to see an example of the court maybe surprising us with a little bit more of a moderate stance. Perhaps
a moderate stance would be a partial overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Maybe a partial overturning. I think Roberts sort of laid it out when he said maybe something about changing the standard of viability or just enforcing the 15-week rule. But he made it clear, like Roberts, Chief Justice said, Roberts said, well, we won't overturn Roe v. Wade completely, but maybe we look at the 15-week rule. And each justice that was in favor of it was giving their different reasons. I think that they realized that the danger of damaging the image of the court as a political institution, that perhaps they would tread back. And sometimes these justices surprise us, right? This is what the media is reporting, but they meet privately. They discuss the cases. Look, if this had been held, we wouldn't have gay marriage in the United States. Obamacare would have been overturned, right? And none of those things happen.
Can I say, I don't think that it ought to be a consideration to the court at all what their public image is. The only issue they should be looking at is whether things constitutionally make sense. But what I will say is I agree with you. I personally think that it will be a partial overturning, not a complete overturning of Roe v. Wade. Yeah. That's what I think will be the likely way forward. Sasha and Mark, what's your prediction? What do you think? Will they overturn it partially, fully, or not at all?
I think that y'all are right that they're going to be swayed to some degree by the media attention and things of that nature. And I also agree that they need to be making decisions based on the Constitution and the actual rules of the law. But I do think that y'all are both right that it will be a partial overturning. And I'm actually very curious to see what the reaction will be after that, because I do know that there are probably a lot of activists within the like the feminist movement and other types of movements that will be very adamant in their protest, even
but there are adamant right to lifers as well, and that's the thing. Not every almost half of America are Republican or voted Republican last election. Almost half or just over half voted for the Democrats in the last election. The thing is that not all Republicans are right to lifers, and not all Democrats are right to choosers.
Agreed.
So So the idea that the Supreme Court would look bad, you're going to upset somebody, right? And there's going to be a big percentage of people that are upset no matter what decision you make. Sasha, what do you think? Partial, fully, or not at all overturning it?
They will leave that alone, and they will not change anything, because if they do, then Republicans will lose later year election, and they will for sure lose 24 presidential election. So the court, being political body, it's not independent as you, Shaquille, believe. No, it's not. It's a political instrument which is used by parties which are appointing the judges. Let's be real. You want to read Constitution every day, 2 times a day? Make your day. Please do so.
Sasha, once
Constitution doesn't work. So it's a political instrument, and they will leave it alone because they will infuriate so many people, including independents. They will vote it, and they will lose any credibility that Supreme Court still has. They will lose it all at one day.
Sasha, part of the reason why Supreme Court justices are appointed for life is specifically because it means that they don't have any further political ambitions. And so I don't think that the party that's in power at the time is, if they appoint a Supreme Court justice which swings at 5-4 in their favor, that makes the Supreme Court at that time an extension of their party. I don't think that that's the case, and I think that history shows that hasn't been the case. That justices have made rulings, that justices that Democrats have appointed have made rulings, including RGB, that the Democrats were not happy with, or were surprised by, and conservative justices appointed by Republicans have made rulings that Republicans weren't happy with, and surprised by. So I don't think that it is. The politicians are partisan in their appointments, but the court itself, I don't think, is a partisan organisation.
Yeah, I think
one second. And if you were going to make that claim, I think it is more pronounced in the High Court of Canada and the High Court of Australia than it ever would be in the United States.
Yeah, and I believe.
Shaquille, before we get to the next issue, just ironically, out of curiosity, I was also looking up the retirement ages and those that have retirement ages in the state level, and there are actually quite a few, and they cover across the spectrum, because Arizona, which is definitely considered a Republican state, has an age of 70.
Really? They just voted for Biden.
Well, I mean, historically, they've been more of a Republican state and everything, and they have a retirement age
California
of 70.
historically made a Republican state too. What's the?
And California has no retirement age, ironically. Colorado has one of 72. Connecticut has one of 70. Florida, which is definitely known as a Republican, has one of 75. I think you would agree that Indiana and definitely Iowa are Republican kind of controlled areas, and they have one. And North Carolina, which is a swing state, has one of about, I want to say it's 72 as well. So it does.
North Carolina has only been a swing state recently. And as for Iowa, I'll tell you that a lot of the issues with the food supply in the United States, I think, comes down to the fact that high fructose corn syrup is predominantly grown from crops grown in Iowa. Mm-hmm. And if you don't win the caucus in Iowa, your chances of winning the presidency are gone. That's just what history shows. Ask presidential candidate McCain about that, if he was still alive, about what happens if you lose the Iowa caucus. So
and the last one I was going to mention is Texas, which is definitely clearly Republican, and they are at the age of 75.
And let me end my commentary on this before we go to the next few. I'm going to sort of list some things that we could talk about, but some exciting news. But first of all, I think that I agree with Shaquille Latimer that at the end of the day, I have faith in the justices of our court, that they are justices because they like to interpret the law, and that they will make their decision based on their interpretation of the Constitution. They will have differences as conservative justices, liberal justices, but as the United States of America has proven in the past, they will come together to make a decision that they believe is in the best interest unanimously. It may not be unanimous, but I agree with Shaquille Latimer that they will surprise us with either a partial overturn, no overturn. But I don't think the courts of the United States of America are going to come in there, because if they had done that, we wouldn't have gay marriage in the United States. Obamacare would have been overturned, right? Many decisions these courts make surprise us, what the political pundits say, what the experts say. Now, will it be used as a political wedge in the elections? Absolutely, right? no matter what happens, whoever the president will appoint, if someone retires or dies, that's going to become political, right? If they overturned it, it's going to be political. If they don't overturn it, Republicans are going to go, you should have, right? So anyway, let's end. We could spend hours on this.
Oh yeah, we
Couple
can
of
definitely spend issues on that. Just really quickly, and then we'll toss it back to you. Just something to Shaquille that I think you'll get a kick out of, just because this candidate has been running forever and is probably going to run next time as well. The oldest one in terms of age limits is Vermont. Apparently, you can be a judge up until you're 90. So apparently, Bernie is kind of followed in line with everything else in that regard. So.
Well, like I said, I just, real quickly, a couple of breaking news. First of all, we do continue to pray for the victims of the shooting, and more confirmed dead. I think at least four have died, so we pray for that. We're not going to talk about gun violence today, but we pray for Oregon. Real quickly, Governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams, who ran in 2018, back in the ring. We're going to talk about that. Stacey Abrams running for governor of Georgia. Very, very interesting. President, we have our first case of Omicron variant, most likely in California. Okay. President Biden has extended the mandate for, I think, masks on planes and automobiles and trains, or planes and trains until March. So that was something big. And I'm not sure. Let's start with the Stacey Abrams. There's probably a couple of other things I'm missing. But Shaquille, what do you think about Abrams running for the governorship of Georgia?
I don't like her. And it's not because she's a Democrat. I don't like her race-baiting crap, right? And I spent a lot of time in Georgia. And I have a lot of friends who are Georgian Democrats. But she comes out and says that she won the election was stolen from her, and that gets all this sort of media attention. Trump does it, and how dare he suggest it? That needs to be cancelled. She lost the election. I do like the idea that she is trying to get more people to vote, get more people enrolled to vote, that sort of stuff. I think that she's being selective and she's only trying to get people to vote who are going to vote Democrat. However, I think for the process to work properly, the more people that vote, the better. Obviously, I come from a country where voting is mandatory. So, I think that everybody should participate in the political process. But she really rubs me the wrong way. But I'm not going to say much more than that. Look, I wish her luck. I hope that Georgia gets the governor that they want, that they deserve, that's actually going to deliver the things for the future of all Georgians. Past that, I won't say too much because obviously I do have some connections with the current office holder of the governor's office, Brian Kemp. So I'll restrain from saying anything more than that. But as I said, I wish you the best of luck. But more than anything, I wish that Georgia gets the governor that they are going to benefit the most from.
I'm not going to ask Sasha Starr because he's in Canada, but Mark Lee, your thoughts?
Well, I'm from Australia, so what's the difference?
Yeah. Sasha, are you interested
as well on this?
Sasha, do you have an opinion or?
I'm not familiar with her policies. I've seen her on TV a few times here and there. I think
well, I can tell you her policies in a nutshell, Sasha. She's black, she's oppressed, all black people are oppressed, white people are horrible and evil and terrible. Mark Lee agrees. That's her policy.
Then let's listen to Mark Lee.
Mark Lee, what are your thoughts about her?
First off, I think that she has brought us some very good points about some of the rules against the elections and things of that nature.
Such as?
I do think that there have been gentrification cases in terms of electoral gentrification, in terms of not just Georgia, but in terms of North Carolina.
Electoral gentrification, what's that?
Well, it's kind of like, where you put voting lines and you have the certain voting lines in certain...
You mean gerrymandering?
Gerrymandering, exactly. Gerrymandering. But yes, I think that is a legitimate concern in Georgia, a legitimate concern in North Carolina.
As in it's not a concern anywhere else, right? Like
no,
she's pretty young.
I said it's a concern in those places, and I'm just saying that is something that she has brought out. I would like to see some more of her positions as well. I'm not going to support somebody, and I've said that before. So
do you agree then with California Republicans that talk about the gerrymandering in California? Do you agree with Oregonian and Washington State Republicans that talk about gerrymandering in those states? You agree with them that gerrymandering shouldn't happen?
I agree that gerrymandering should not happen, and I do agree that it's an issue on both the Democratic and the Republican side. I'm not going to say that it's an issue just strictly in the Democratic areas. And as I have stated before on this show, I am not a big fan of PACs and things of that nature. So like a couple of folks have said, I want to hear more about what she's going to do for the state of Georgia before I'm going to sit there and say that I'm going to support her, which may surprise some folks because I want to see more about what her exact positions are. I do have, and I know y'all get tired of me talking about direct family connections, but I do have family in that state. So, and I would want them to be having a governor that is going to be doing things that are good for them, as well as anybody that may be coming to visit that. So I'll be following the campaign to see exactly what she is saying. And if she is a one issue candidate, then I don't think that you'll win, because that can be an issue for anybody if you just try to center on one issue and don't talk about what you're going to do about a number of other things as well. So I will be following the campaign to see exactly what her stances are. I mean, I know that he's running in the GOP field, but, you know, and he is Trump endorsed, but I was a fan of Herschel Walker. So I'll also be curious to see exactly what Herschel Walker is going to be doing as well, since he is also running for office as well in that state.
Is he running for the United States Senate? Ooh, Herschel Walker, first down and 10. I love it. Hey, real quickly, so we've got our first case of Omicron in the United States. You know, I just don't know. I heard Fauci yesterday on CNN, and he's encouraging everyone to get a booster. Nobody's really able to answer the question of when this will end. Will the virus reach a point where it will just stop mutating? Or do you all believe that we're just going to have to live with this forever, sort of like a new type of flu? When will it reach that point where it's just accepted? Because right now everything, is like, COVID cases, COVID cases, COVID cases. I mean, I don't, is this happening in your respective countries, or do you think this is just when will it end being a pandemic? Does anyone know the answer to that question?
Steve, you were on the show with me yesterday when we had a pharmacist on and everything, and you heard his answer, which was basically that it's not going to be any time in the immediate future, and that's based on a lot of things, including people's maybe hesitancy, and in some cases rightful hesitancy, as well as rules and the different variants and things of that nature. But he made it very clear, and that's not just a one person that I've heard from the science community. So I do not think that we can expect it to be totally over in 2022, which we're coming into next year. And everybody that I'm hearing from is saying that if we're lucky, we're looking at 2025 or the end of this decade and things of that nature. So it is definitely something that will be ongoing for a while, and it may be like the flu and something that we just have to deal with for a while. I hope that I'm wrong, but there are new variants that come out on a regular basis. And like I said, I'm not just dependent on Mr. Canterbury. There are other doctors that I've heard from as well that are saying that they do not expect an end and that we can expect new normals. And part of that is some of the things that we're doing now, which is definitely following the original rules, kind of like what in terms of washing your hands, definitely wearing the mask, social distancing, and not everybody is even following those rules.
So I think personally, my understanding of viruses, how they normally operate, or how they normally evolve, is that they become more contagious and less lethal. Right. And I think that that's probably what the future of this will be. I hope that that's what it will be. I hope it will become less lethal, so you catch it as like catching a cold or something like that. The flu does kill a lot of people every year, but most people who catch the flu, they don't have any serious symptoms. So I tend to think that that's probably what's going to happen with it. But look, I'm not a virologist. I'm not a medical expert, so I don't know. What I will say is that I do feel that the people who aren't getting the vaccine now, I think that a big part of that is mistrust, not just of government, but of what they're being told.
Skepticism.
And I think that there's a lot of frustration. There's mistrust because they don't feel that media, or they feel that media is very biased. They don't think that media is telling the whole story. Right. And there's mistrust because they feel as though they can't express their views or even make jokes about it on social media and on the internet without being cancelled or shut down. And I think that causes a lot of damage because it causes people to mistrust the system even more. And as you said, Steve, you're hesitant about getting the booster. I think that there's a lot of people out there that's saying, well, look, if I've had to have 2 vaccines and I was told that this was going to be fine, and now I've got to get a booster, and the vaccines wear off every 6 months. Do I need to get a booster every 6 months? Should I wait until our second vaccines or third vaccines are out? And I think that's probably a big part of the fact that people don't feel as though they can reasonably express their view and get an answer. And if they do ask the question, and they say, look, I'm concerned because, I think the vaccine's going to cause me to grow a third arm. Instead of them being told, look, that can't happen, that's not scientifically how it works, they get ridiculed and told they're idiots and just trust the science. And they say, well, explain the science to me. And that they sort of get ridiculed when they ask those questions. And I think that that's causing a big part of the hesitancy amongst that group that are still hesitant. So
Yeah.
I think we would do a lot better if we actually opened up discussions. Sasha?
I think it will be varied from country to country. And for example, China completely isolated its people, and in fact, it resolved all the issues regarding coronavirus. It's just not there.
Yeah.
And some other countries, again, it depends. The more authoritarian countries, the better it's equipped to fight the pandemic, coronavirus, and other issues. The less authoritarian country, the more some people take vaccines, some people don't, some people use wearing masks, some people don't wear masks. So it's neither here nor there. And unfortunately, you alone, even by holding the distance and wearing the mask and taking vaccines and so on, you alone cannot deal with that. It's all population of a country that what would defeat coronavirus, but it's not happening. Certainly not.
I'll just say though, like Singapore has an 88% vaccinated population. Portugal is at 87%. Malta is at 86%. Chile is at 85%. So the UAE is the top at over 90%. I'm not sure that it is just authoritarian countries. I think authoritarian countries are more able to tell people you stay at home, and they do, right? And I think Steve talks about Republican states having, at the moment appears to be worse results than what Democrat states are having. But last year it was a different story. Last year it was Democrat areas. So I think that it depends on what's happening at the time, and I would still suggest that people have a healthy mistrust of government. That's why we have liberal democracies. That's the whole purpose of the Constitution of the United States, and Magna Carta in the UK, Bill of Rights in other countries, is so that you can restrain government power. That's what we're supposed to. That's what we're supposed to have, so we don't live in tyranny. But there's a price that we pay, and that is that people make their own choices, and sometimes those choices are bad for themselves and the community.
Right, absolutely, and
you're talking about choices, except women. Women
but
skeptic, and
That's actually, if you're talking about abortion, they do. They can just decide to use contraception, or not screw around with people that don't want to marry.
I don't know if you know this. Hopefully, not that contraceptives are not working 100% of the time.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? And you know what, Sasha? And you know what, Sasha? Two-way street. The woman needs to be responsible for the decision that she makes. So too does the man. If the man, has sex, protected or otherwise, with a woman, that he better be prepared to have a kid with her, because that is a very real consequence of what they've done. Okay, and if they feel as though the condom broke or something went wrong, go get the morning after pill. But past that, if you have brought a life, if you've created a life, you both need to be responsible for it. To suggest that a woman who's told this child is viable, so no, we can't kill it, is to take away their choices, oversimplifies the issue.
I'll tell you, Shaquille, that the problem with all that is that the life that is being created, it has to be something that both want. Because if man and woman want that child, she will carry the child, and he will be born, or she, and they will be able to provide for the child and get good education and private lessons and sports and music and everything else to make a proper rounded person that has chances to succeed in this complicated
So why not? So why not allow those parents to say, look, my child's a week old. This was a mistake. I'm not going to be able to afford the child. I'm not going to be able to, give the child what the child needs in order to be able to, make it in the world. Let's kill it at a week old, 6 months old. Like, what's the difference? Why not do that?
You know what? I'll tell you, I wouldn't be surprised, actually, that if this law will uphold, and women will not be able to carry abortions as they do now, what happened will? I think will be the proliferation of homosexual relationships, because this way people would not have to take a risk of having sex, and all of a sudden the girl is pregnant and now she cannot do abortion. So where are we going like that? So each
Sasha, I have never in my life looked at a beautiful girl and said, look, I'd like to have sex with you. There's a chance we could have a child. So instead, I'll have sex with your brother. I've never had that desire. So I'm not quite sure where you're going with that one. But
you have no choice as to develop a desire for this type of
relationship. All the time I was in America,
all right, it's getting a little hot.
Yeah, we're getting a little out of hand here.
All the time I was in America, Sasha, I never once said to a girl, hey, who's your daddy? And she turned around and said, why? Do you want his phone number?
Hey, guys,
that never happened to me when I was there.
Shaquille and Sasha on a serious note. Yeah, Shaquille and Sasha on a serious note and everything. But you actually had brought it up.
What does my wife keep reminding me?
I wondered if we're seeing enough attention brought to alternative ways of dealing with unwanted pregnancies, because I don't know that we're giving enough attention in the nation or in the world to the foster system and or the adoption system. And my brother actually did foster some kids in his life, and definitely they have done, I think he's still in touch with several of them and everything. So it is an institution that we need more of. And I've even known some people that have adopted from other countries, including some in the former Russian nations and things of that nature and everything. So do you think that we're paying enough attention to that? That's one question. And the other thing is, do you think that Planned Parenthood, a lot of times Planned Parenthood is seen as being an organization that some people may consider as being liberal, because they definitely do let folks know about where the abortion clinics are, but they also provide natural and regular birth control and things of that nature. So do you think that that's one of them nonprofits that we've talked about before that might be painted into a corner as being one position or another, or do you think that it is a fair organization? So it's really two questions: whether we're doing enough in the sense of foster and adoption, and whether Planned Parenthood is an overly liberal organization.
Well, first of all, I think that this is a very, very my approach to abortion has changed. I don't feel as comfortable talking about it after I have my own children, number one. And so I don't think that we should be out there encouraging people to have abortions, but I believe that this is about a woman's right to choose. And that's where I lean on pro-choice. But I do think there might be exceptions.
What about the child's right to choose?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I get very uncomfortable talking about these issues, because I think about my children now that they're grown, and when my wife told me she was pregnant, at what time did I see the baby and then realize, oh my God, that's a real person. I don't think any of us are in favor of killing life, but is it the government's role to tell a woman what she should do with her body?
But
right?
Steve, again, it's not her body, though, is it? It's the body that's inside her, right?
No. Come on.
The body that's inside her is not her body.
It would not exist if it wouldn't be for women's body. So
it wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the man either.
Of women's bodies, there could be could be another life. And by the way, in not all cases, abortions are bad. Imagine that mothers of people like Hitler, Stalin, if they would make abortions, the world would be a much better place. Don't you agree with me?
No,
So
how would you, hang on, wait. Well, hang
and
on.
it doesn't matter whether Hitler's
Sasha,
mother would have
Sasha,
abortion
Sasha.
after 15 weeks or 18 weeks or only 5 weeks. In
Sasha.
either case, it's welcome. It would be
Sasha.
beautiful.
Hang on. If Hitler's mother had an abortion, the world would be a better place. How is Hitler's mother? I have no idea who Hitler's mother is or was. How is Hitler's mother supposed to know that her child's going to grow up to be a murdering maniac? How is she supposed to know that when it's a fetus?
No, I'm talking about if she would just make an abortion, that's all. She wouldn't know anything what her future
But,
child
okay, well, she's not going to.
just make an abortion, that's
Okay,
it.
but she's not going to know. That doesn't add any weight whatsoever to the abortion debate. It really doesn't. You know, and again, I'm not telling you, people are going to think that now that I'm an anti-abortionist. I'm not. Okay, I'm not telling you where I stand. Okay, but you guys are all for it, so I'm going to play the other side. If you guys were all against it, then I'd play the other side. You know, I think people need to think about it a bit more. But so what was the original question?
The original question was, well, you answered part of it just
about foster care.
Abortion, but we were also talking about Planned Parenthood. Yeah.
Right. So foster care. No, I think we need to pay a lot more attention to foster care. You know, it breaks my heart to see, and America actually, their adoption agencies, you can go on there and you can actually see the kids. And I think I've told this story before. I was sort of having a look around, you know, on them. I look at all sorts of things, and there was a kid on there who was 17, turning 18 in like a week. And I rang up the agency. I said, I just don't understand. Like, what's the point? They said, because this kid's going to age out, and they don't have anybody, you know. And I'm like, so you're going to adopt an 18-year-old? They're legally an adult. And that's the real shame, is that, you know, young babies and sort of toddlers and that are more likely to be adopted. And as the children get older, they're less and less likely to get adopted. And certainly when they get to their teenage years, they're generally going to age out of the system. And oftentimes they don't have any family or, you know, any sort of support network. So that's a real sad thing. I do think there needs to be a lot more attention paid to that. And that means in your country that Republicans need to bite the bullet and say, if you don't want to have abortions, you need to start paying a bit more in taxes or in charitable donations to help these foster agencies operate. As for Planned Parenthood, I won't bring up, you know, a lack of support for them because of their founding, founded by a Ku Klux Klan member that said that any black person who loved their child would do the right thing and kill it. I think any organization founded on those principles, yeah, I'm going to have a problem with that. Then they go around and they deliberately place Planned Parenthood clinics in black areas. And I don't see anyone saying, hang on just a minute, why are black people being encouraged to kill their black kids? But obviously that's not politically correct because Democrats say that they love black people. So, you know, we can't talk about that. What I will say is I don't think that Planned Parenthood does a particularly good job of imaging. And the thing that really made me just go, you guys are complete idiots, is when these Christian, ultra right-wing Christian people went around with those videos, took these surreptitious videos of them talking to Planned Parenthood managers and talking about being able to purchase the aborted fetuses and the fetal tissue so that they could use that for scientific experimentation. And Planned Parenthood apologized for that. Now, this is legitimate stuff. This is stuff that pharmaceutical companies use. They look at stem cells, they look at fetal tissue, and they're able to make medical advancements. They're not encouraging the abortions, but they're saying if you're going to have them, let's access the tissue. And Planned Parenthood apologized for it because of public pressure. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, they've just gone down partisan roads with Planned Parenthood. And I think that probably another organization should perhaps step in and provide some of the services.
Yeah, from a branding perspective, you know, it's well, real quickly, we're going to end with just talking about the Omicron variant. We do have one case in California where in North Carolina, our Secretary of Health and Human Services, Mandy Cohen, has just resigned, and now Cody Kinsley will be taking her position. She was with our governor for 5 years. We want to give her a shout out for doing a remarkable job handling the pandemic with our governor, Roy Cooper. And she was actually being considered by the Biden administration for some significant senior posts, but decided to to bow out. And our Vice President Kamala Harris is visiting North Carolina today in Charlotte.
Oh, that's only newsworthy.
I was asked to go, but I didn't want to drive the 2.5 or 3 hours to shake her hand and take a picture. I've got a selfie with her and a picture. And
Could you ask her? Could you ask her to keep going south down to the border? Because they're wanting her down there.
Well, she'll be there with Secretary P.O.D, the Secretary of Transportation, who I truly believe may be the front runner for the Democratic nomination if she doesn't run and Biden does not run for re-election. Watch out for Mayor Pete. He'll be the first openly gay president of the United States. But Mayor Pete Buttigieg has an impressive resume, I must say. A veteran to our nation, served in two wars, I think, or at least Afghanistan. Worked at McKinsey. Became a mayor.
Steve, that's not how he's polling. Before he was transport secretary, he polled a bit better. Now, if you were to have an election today, Biden would definitely lose. There's no question about that. Kamala Harris on the poll numbers has got no chance. I don't even think that she'd make the primaries. I don't even think the Democrats would put her up. And if Pete Buttigieg was actually leading the Democrats into the next election, I think that Republicans could appoint anybody to run against him. And
you know what? Another plus for him is he doesn't have to worry about abortions one way or another.
Well, Sasha, he just took paternity leave. Yeah. I hope he's recovered from having the baby.
I'm talking about abortions, not paternity.
No, I know. You don't have to worry about abortions with him, but he has just he's just had a baby. He's had paternity leave at a time when America was having supply chain issues, and America's like, what is going on? Where is this guy? I don't think that that's going to poll well. As I said, I don't think, honestly, I think you could take, some of the worst Republicans you can think of. I don't know who. I won't say Donald Trump, but some of the worst Republicans you can think of, and put him against me, and I don't think he's got any chance.
Does he have any chances to beat Donald Trump in 24?
No, I don't think so.
Look, if Donald Trump runs again, and I think it's a mistake because of his age and because it's going backwards, right? I think it's a mistake for the Republican Party to put him there. But time will tell. We'll see what happens. I think if he was to run, he'd win. But it'd be who would he win against? Now, I think that I think if you put Bernie Sanders there, you possibly have a chance. Certainly last time round, if Bernie Sanders was on the ticket with Joe Biden, I think the Democrats would have absolutely cleaned up in that election. They would have won by a much bigger margin because I think that was a much more compelling ticket. So I think if Donald Trump was to run, you'd have to have a Democrat that's not just loved by Democrats, but is actually loved by other people. So what would you do? Would you take Manchin? Would you take Sinema? I mean, Sinema is not big enough. Manchin maybe because it's a bit more popular. But you'd have to find a Democrat that has the ability to be respected by a few others.
I think
Manchin could do it. Manchin could make it.
Manchin might be able to. I think Tulsi Gabbard would be a good candidate. If you put Tulsi Gabbard against Nikki Haley, for example, that would be a very interesting race. But if you're going to put somebody up against Donald Trump, or if you're going to put somebody up against Ron DeSantis, who seems like the obvious choice after Donald Trump, I think you're going to have somebody who's very
I think one guy we haven't talked about who I think will win the attorney. He's favored to win the Attorney General of Texas, and then I see him being president, maybe a candidate in 8 years if he can become a senator. Is George Prescott Bush? Yes, the grandson. It's like the Star Wars series, The Legacy, right? So the grandson of George Herbert Walker Bush, the son of former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, right? And his name is George P. Bush. So the Bushes will never die because this guy is favored to win Attorney General of Texas. Then you see the writing on the wall. Then he's going to run for the U.S. Senate, and then
you're going to have a look. He's a lot more charismatic
too. He's a Hispanic.
Yeah, and he's a lot more charismatic than his grandfather. I think that he would have a tough time when Donald Trump's hanging around, because of Donald Trump's comments about Jeb Bush and the Bush family in general. Right. There's a bit of animus there. But that's why I said I think that the Republicans need to pull in a new era. They can keep a lot of Trump-style policies. I still think it's probably going to be Ron DeSantis that'll run. but with a big endorsement from Donald Trump. That's what I think is most likely. But again, look, I'm wrong on these political guesses all the
I'd like
time.
to see.
Hey,
I'd like to see. You
Shaquille,
know who? I'd like
Shaquille.
to see Oprah Winfrey run. Let's
Oh
see
no,
Why?
Oprah Winfrey run.
let's not have that. I mean, well, wait a minute. Hold on a second. You said you want to see-
She's now turned off a lot of people on the right because she became partisan. 20 years ago, she wasn't partisan. Now, a lot of people are becoming a little bit frustrated with her. Mark.
Well, I was going to say that one of her colleagues is actually running for office, and who knows, that might be one of those balloon trials to see whether she can run later. Because Dr. Oz did get his fame from her show originally and everything, so he is running for Pennsylvania and in office in Pennsylvania. I can't remember whether it's Senate or governor, but I do know that he's running for
But not
office.
not everybody that got their start from Oprah Winfrey are necessarily on the left. Like Dr. Philip
No.
McGraw, for example, Dr.
Yeah,
Phil, he comes across as moderate, maybe centre left, but I tend to think he's moderate centre right. In
And
his
I would
view.
agree the same with Dr. Phil, and Dr. Phil is definitely in that same
what I just said.
category. I would
That's
consider
what I just
him.
said. I just said
Yeah.
Dr. Phil.
We're getting ready for closeout, guys. Any
Yeah, I
last
know we're
minute
getting ready for
issues?
close out just really quickly, and then we can bring this up on tomorrow's show as we close out the week and everything. But I'm getting ready to toss it to you and everything. But I'm not sure that the country is ready to elect a gay man to be president and everything. I don't know if Main Street America is ready. I actually made that.
I don't think.
I know
I don't
Nick
think
loves these
that's-
polls, and I actually made it.
Well, what do you base that on? I don't think that people are going to look at something and say if Pete Buttigieg has the best economic policy, the best everything, and their lives are going to be improved. I don't think that America's going to sit there and say, you know what, I love his policies, but I'm going to vote for the thing I don't like. I'm going to vote for a party I don't like because he's gay. That's just not going to happen. People make decisions primarily. Most elections are determined primarily on the economy, unless there is something else going on. The last election, I think, had a lot to do with COVID. I think if COVID wasn't around, if the pandemic didn't happen, I think that Donald Trump would have won that election by a massive landslide. But COVID interfered with that. Coming into the next election, hopefully COVID will be behind us by then. I can't see Americans thinking that being gay is going to be a problem, because that's what they said about having a black president. They elected Barack Obama on a massive margin. So I just don't think that's.
I hope that I'm wrong. I just did a survey. The survey came out that 67%, and it wasn't like they got a lot of votes, but 67% said that Main Street America was not ready to vote for a gay man.
Yeah, but the question that's being asked is not, are you ready? It's, do you think that mainstream America is ready for it?
Right.
So they ask their questions in a particular way in order to get a particular result.
Right, folks.
And then if he runs, right, if he runs and he doesn't win, then they can say, like they say with Kamala Harris, if you don't agree with her policies, you're a racist. They're going to say, well, America didn't vote. See, that just proves America's homophobic. That's what it's going to be, rather than saying, I don't care about the guy. I don't care what he does in the bedroom. What I care about is, how are his policies going to affect me? Is it going to be positive for me and my community and my family? That's what people look at, but they're going to try and distill it down to being a gay issue, and it's really not.
Right. And the other question I hope that we'll get to tomorrow and everything, and it's something that actually Sasha has brought up a couple of times, and apparently it's a major issue in world politics, is immigration, because apparently France is having an election, and that is a major issue in the French election, is their stance on immigrants and how it counters to the stance of, say, Australia and Germany, which are apparently being very pro-immigrants coming in, whereas apparently France is having more of a isolationist kind of viewpoint and things of that nature. So hopefully we can bring that up on a story on tomorrow as well, because it does seem like that is a world issue, country stance with immigrants.
Well, folks, we're going to be talking about immigration. I'll be bringing Jeremy Robbins on in a few weeks from the New American Economy. I'm working on some op-eds right now that I'll be publishing to share with everyone on a year-end review in immigration, both legal immigration, illegal immigration. And I have reached out to a few other guests that are going to come on before the end of the year. And beginning in the new year, we'll be bringing on a guest maybe every week. I'll have more time to plan it. Not so much a last jab. Thank you for being with us today. I think it's very interesting to talk about the Supreme Court. We'll be watching the Roe v. Wade very closely. I believe that we should lean on being positive on our court, that they're not a political institution, but these are jurists. They may have different values, but they will do their job as the American judges on a high court and will interpret the Constitution and make a decision that the nation can live on and set policy. And hopefully that will happen. And as an American democracy, we will abide and live by their decisions as we govern in the future.
It's a
We,
constitutional republic, not
constitutional
democracy.
republic.
You're not democracy.
We will be back tomorrow to talk about immigration, to talk about a little bit about breaking down the infrastructure bill. And I will be not on PBS tomorrow, probably next week or the week after. But we look forward to seeing you all. May the light and love of our hearts live on always during this holiday season. And thank you all so much for being with us for this hour.
Appreciate you. And we'll be back with our usual intro and outro because I hit the wrong button that first time. So this time we'll be in with our usual intro and outro.